right, let's start this train.
Yeah, let's start it up. All right. What's up, everyone? This is Jason Tucker. This is WPwatercooler, episode number 108. Today we're going to be talking about what to do when your WordPress traffic explodes. Let's go around the huge room here real quick and get everyone introduced. We go in alphabetical order. Let's start with George.
Hi, I'm George Stefanis. I'm the team lead for Jetpack over at Imagemagick, and my favorite book last year was 50 Shades of Say.
Speaking of which, what's up, Say?
Oh, hey, guys! No, I didn't see you there. I'm Say Reed. I know that wasn't funny, but I had nothing else. I do stuff with WordPress. That's all you need to know. That's all I got for you today. Yay! At Say Reed Media, tweet me. Say hi.
Steve, do you do things with WordPress?
If you're watching this episode, just turn it off now.
No,
I'm just kidding. I'm Steve Zangen. I'm the founder of Zeek Interactive, and I lead the OC WordPress meetup. And tonight is Developer Day.
Woohoo!
Brandon and Jeff are hosting.
Good stuff. Suzette, what about you?
Everybody, I'm Suzette Frank, and I am a web developer over at Web Dev Studios. And I work with the WordPress.
Sweet. I'm Jason Tucker. You can find me Jason Tucker on Twitter, and I blog about audio-video stuff at WPmedia.pro. So today we're going to be talking about optimizing your website, dealing with large spikes of traffic that are coming from /dot. Is that correct?
Right.
When your site gets listed on
when your site gets listed on /dot, you should probably update your Dreamweaver.
Ooh, burn!
Let me look that up on Lycos, and I'll get back to you. I hear Alta Vista has some good suggestions.
I'm going to ask G for all you people.
What about Dogpile?
We're all dating ourselves.
So
I'm not dating myself.
Someone has to.
So there's a bunch of different components to this idea of optimizing your website for large amounts of traffic. You know, some people would just say go to some premium web host and throw some money at them, and then they'll host your site. They'll take care of all the stuff.
Screw those people.
No, okay, so let's start with talking about hosting. All right?
Yeah, we should.
So hosting plays a major factor here in scalability.
Wait, can we talk first about what major traffic means, or what that means? When would you start to have to worry about this?
And I think that could mean many things to many people, right? It depends on the size of your site, the size of your audience, the size of your hosting.
Size matters?
Yes, size matters, yes.
Oh, dear.
That was the biggest softball you've ever thrown me, man.
Yeah. Well, I don't know what the biggest.
The fact of the matter is, it's going to come down to two main questions.
Yes.
And the first one is going to be whether you know in advance that the traffic spike is going to happen.
That's true.
For example, if you're about to make some big appearance on Oprah, there are things you can do in advance to help your website weather the expected traffic spike.
I often make big appearances on Oprah.
If something goes viral because you just did something really, really stupid, like say that women should just believe in karma and not ask for raises, then that's going to be an unexpected traffic spike. And you may need to deal with that after you're already under load.
10 points for a current event reference. That was good.
So just for first, if you're expecting the traffic spike, there's great things you can do, but getting a caching plugin set up, and especially talking to your web host, even if you're on something like a DreamHost Happy Hosting plan or one of the Bluehost shared hosts, talk to the techs, let them know that something is going to be coming up. And there's probably a couple things they can do in advance to increase your memory limits and just
as a bunch more money.
So you've covered 3 different things there in one.
Yeah.
All right.
Let's
go back. So now we got nothing to talk about for the main.
Let's go back first. Let's talk specifically about hosting. All right. Where should I host?
Oh,
okay.
Well.
That was a terrible question.
No, it wasn't. It actually was not. Right.
It depends.
Where should you host if you are So we're talking about 2 separate things. One is a traffic spike. So you have average, normal, or even subnormal traffic, and then something happens where your traffic all of a sudden over the course of a day or two is crazy gangbusters, right? That's one type of scale that we have to talk about. And then the other side is people who are just ongoingly getting high levels of traffic,
Okay,
and
so
on an ongoing basis, and they're exchanging lots of data and that type of thing. So those are two separate scenarios that I think deserve two separate answers.
yes, and no. And here's why I'm saying that, right? My clients are all news sites, and they rely on or they get drudge links is what they get. So my equivalent of a /dot is a drudge link. And once a drudge link happens,
That
the
explains
service
so
gets
much.
inundated with major traffic, and you cannot predict it. There's no planning, there's no predicting. It drudge just links where he wants.
You can't even pay for it.
Nope. No.
Happens.
He's just a guy who does
Do not pay for those trolls to come to your site.
So-
No matter how much you want to.
So my clients just have to be ready. You just have to be ready and prepared for that kind of a traffic spike.
But how do you know, like, if the traffic that you're getting is legitimate, or maybe you're being the victim of some kind of denial of service attack? How would you determine that?
That's different, right?
Yeah.
That's why she's asking the question.
Let's can we stay focused on hosting just for a minute here?
Yep.
So not all hosts are created equally.
Yeah, true.
That's a statement.
Yes,
All right.
we're with you.
Okay, so if I'm just sitting on a shared host, like a GoDaddy or Bluehost or HostMonster or something like that, right? What's the problem there if I get a traffic spike? These are terrible. You're right. These are terrible.
The bad neighbor effect. You have the bad neighbor effect on some shared hosting.
What does that mean?
That means that if they are taking up too much bandwidth, their resources are your shared resources are actually being used by your neighbor and not by you.
So that could be a problem regardless of whether I get a traffic spike on my site or not. So there could be a traffic spike on another site that I'm sharing a server with, and that could create problems for me.
Okay, yeah, so that's because people aren't necessarily going to care if they're impacting. I mean, let's be honest, they'll be like, yeah, whatever, that's their problem. But the real problem with if you are having a traffic spike on a shared server, the real concern is that you could actually, your site could get shut down, especially if you're on GoDaddy. That has happened to multiple clients that I've had before I had them, by the way, as clients. But, you know, so they are all of a sudden they get this publicity, you know, someone's linking to them, HuffPo's linking to them or whatever, and then their site gets shut down, and they literally lose all of that amazing traffic. What? What did I say?
Oh,
You said
nothing.
shite. Excellent. And I liked it.
I like to censor myself.
Especially when Jason's in a church.
Yeah.
They don't know. Shite's not an English word.
It's only used by people.
Point being is that you can lose your whole website. Not lose your website; it'll still be there, but they'll shut down your site because you've exceeded the parameters of what you're paying for, and
Or they might charge you.
Right.
Or they'll charge you.
Yeah,
And you'll
some
end up
people
with
actually get
an insane bill, which is actually, depending on your business model, that's probably better that you would get charged because at least you have all these eyeballs on your site, as opposed to the one time that you're getting the most amazing traffic ever, which is what everyone wants for a website, and then your site gets shut down, so you lose.
It's a good problem to have and a good problem to solve.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. So what's my next step up from shared hosting?
VPS.
Thing.
Go ahead, Suzette.
Probably managed hosting, because I think that would be a step up above before VPS.
Okay.
So the managed hosting, so someone who would take care of like all the tasks of upgrading your site, and I don't know. I think that's like in a different class than just regular WordPress hosting.
Who do you?
Let me ask you guys a question here, though, real quick. So you know how there are all the tiers. And this is something I'm actually asking. So there's all those tiers, and obviously you get more.
Here's like TEARS?
Tiers, yes.
TIERS.
Oh, okay, that's different than if I'm crying.
Level of service. So, you know, obviously if you're doing, for example, like SiteGround's Go Geek one instead of their Startup one, you get more bandwidth, you get more traffic. So just because you're on even though you're on a shared server, it still depends what tier you're on. Because if you're on the basic one, you have less bandwidth allotted to you, you have less data transfer allotted to you, you have less traffic and visitors, as opposed to even if you're on shared, but you're paying for the higher level, you will get more leeway there. even though it can still cause problems.
But that doesn't necessarily equate to simultaneous traffic, right? I might be allowed more traffic and more bandwidth, but once I get hit with a whole bunch of simultaneous traffic, that might not be what I'm paying for in those tiers.
Is there a stat for that? Is there like a simultaneous traffic stat?
Yeah, it's data on how many concurrent visitors you can have at any given time.
And you can see it in Google Analytics in the real-time doohickey.
That's not really something that any of the hosts kind of put out as a feature in their plans. They don't say, 100 concurrent visitors or anything like that.
No, they don't, and that's why that's kind of what we're specifically talking about today. Is that concurrent traffic?
Wow, I'm on topic.
You were on line.
Hold the horses.
I don't even know what to do with that. Like, what do I do with myself now?
Concurrent visitors is an incredible stat, especially when you start looking at it. And at that point, everything turns into marginal utility. What can you do to offload a couple bits here to increase the number of concurrent visitors you can see? And if you're already using Jetpack, you can flip on Photon, so all the images that your web server was serving suddenly get pushed out to a CDN instead, which we've actually done testing, and that will, on some hosts, depending on the amount of pictures you have on your page, that can result in being able to handle double the number of concurrent visitors you've had before, just because if someone's downloading a 1.5 meg image, that's going to take a long connection from the server to get to your computer, and that's going to tie up a lot of other connections that other users could be using to download a 20K piece of HTML.
So let's flip over to software in a second. I want to exhaust the hosting thing. So hosting packages, we've talked about shared, we've talked about VPS, managed, and then beyond that we've got big packages, dedicated hosting, your own servers, things like that, right?
Yeah.
What we're really talking about there, is hardware power, right? And the amount of hardware power, the amount of memory, those things affect how much load you can put up on those servers.
And if you want to not care about hardware power, there's always WordPress.com VIP.
Okay, tell me about that.
Which, depending on...
I don't know what's so funny, but go on, George.
Well, it
Your
depends on
hardware and your loads, I mean, it just, I can't.
You got to get your mind out of the gutter every now and then.
That is where I
Or
live.
not.
Don't insult my home.
I think you're just taking this 50 Shades of Say tagline a little bit too far today.
I take it too far every day. Where have you guys been? It's like, hello.
But essentially, WordPress.com VIP, every single site that's run on WordPress.com runs off the same code base. Whether it's my personal site, Stefanos.info, or TechCrunch, or Gigo. They all run off the same exact code base. So it's all going to scale. The difference is what level of customizability you need and what sort of feature set you need. So if all you need is a basic blog, you could run that for free or the $100 a year package. If you're running VIP, that can be many thousands a month. But the upside of that is you never need to worry about scaling. No matter how much traffic you get, it's never going to become a difficulty because the .com cloud is big enough to just absorb it without a blip.
This episode brought to you by Automatic.
Well, let's mention a couple other hosts that are in the space. Okay, we've also got WP Engine, which will scale pretty nicely, and they've got tiers that if you want to scale, and their caching is good. We've got Pagely that's in the space, and they can scale up as well depending on the amount of traffic. So there's plenty of players in this space.
And Flywheel are both.
Flywheel.
SiteGround is a really good one. I like that.
Pantheon.
SiteGround is a hybrid though.
Okay, so
They're not fully managed.
We've talked for 15 minutes about hosting. Now let's switch over to software. So I can
like
prepare.
when Steve controls the conversation.
Thank you. I can prepare. I can prepare all the hardware and have the hardware in place to handle the traffic. But without the right software solutions in place, I'm screwed. So let's go back and talk about Jetpack again.
Again, this episode brought to you by Automatic.
Oh,
Actually, not. Automatic did not in any way contribute to this, except for George. Part of the
I show up
5%.
for an hour. For that.
They contributed George?
Yeah, right?
Congratulations, you have me.
Wait, did we win or lose?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Look, this covers my 5%, all right?
I was going to say, does this count as the 5% from Automatic? Because I don't know if this is what we're really talking about here.
All right, so let's talk about software real quick. So there's a bunch of different solutions to this. You have stuff that's in the form of in the form of caching on the server itself.
Okay.
You have plugins.
Yep.
And then you also have
before it gets to the server.
Yep.
Be Security's cloud proxy, or whether you're talking about what's the one that
Cloudflare.
Cloudflare.
Yeah, Cloudflare. And just another way of actually where you're caching things. If they can cache stuff before it even hits your server, that's going to significantly increase your load, and they're going to push it out through Edgecast and the CDN and make it a lot easier.
Significantly decrease the load, actually. Decrease the load of your server.
Increase your server's quality.
Capacity.
Increase the capacity.
Okay. Cool. So Cloudflare.
That away.
Yeah. Cloudflare and solutions like that help you with caching and really just offset a lot of those resources to another system. I'm trying to bring it down to earth for our audience.
Well, we still haven't really talked about what these numbers are. Like, what would you say, Steve, is just something that you don't need to worry about scale on? You know, forgetting the spiking for a second, just the average, monthly users or daily users. What would you think someone would start to need to think about this stuff?
Again,
at what number would someone need to start thinking about that?
You can't put a definite number behind that because every site's different, and a lot of it comes down to, now that we're talking about software, a lot of it comes down to well-constructed themes, well-constructed plugins. If you've got a plugin that you're using that's just not well-constructed, you can have 5 users and your site could go down just because it's taxing all your resources on a shared server. So there are no hard and fast numbers here.
So it depends.
It does depend. It does.
I would say probably if your things are done decently, you should be able to handle somewhere from, I'd say ideally between 50 to 200 concurrent users. And that could go up or down depending on what you're using. And I think another thing we need to definitely talk about is what you do when you suddenly become alerted to the fact that your site is overwhelmed and you're already under load. How do you pull back from the brink? Not just what plugins you install in advance, but if your site's getting hit so hard that you can't even log into the admin panel to install a plugin, then what do you do?
So
freak out.
Run. Run and hide.
I think. Okay, look, we could talk about those emergency situations, but I think you do have to do some preparing before you get there. And one of the easiest ways to prepare is just install WP Supercache. If you're doing nothing else, no matter what site you're running, you should be running some sort of caching plugin, and that to me is the easiest thing to set up.
Back cache, W3 total cache. See, I'm mentioning plugins that were not done by Automatic.
But any site you launch, and tell me if you agree with this or not, but you should at least install WP Supercache or some sort of caching plugin just to be ready if a spike occurs, so that you can access your site.
I agree with that. SiteGround, and I've been using a lot of SiteGround lately, but they install that automatically. They install their own caching plugin with every auto install you do.
So WP Engine won't let you use Supercache because they have their own caching system as well. So it is important to know which host you're on, but you should have some sort of caching in place.
Yeah, so SiteGround has a plugin called Supercacher, that you can use for that. That does dynamic caching and so on and so forth. And if you pay the $50 extra a month for it, you can also end up getting Varnish, which sits on the front end of your site, and a few other little tweaks and stuff too.
Especially when you're looking at how you get your server set up, normally you're going to have the PHP running in the background, but you can have multiple levels of caching in front of that. So if you're using Nginx as your web server, that can have its own caching. Then in front of that, you can even have Varnish. So you can have multiple layers of caching with failbacks. So when something, if one page is being requested a lot, that can just be moved up to the highest level of cache, so it doesn't even touch Nginx. It just is served right off Varnish. But if other pages that might get a little bit of traffic, those can back down a bit, and those can come from Nginx, or they might need to be generated on the fly by PHP, depending on how much they're actually being requested.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, back on episode number 49, we talked about using stuff like P3 Profiler to be able to look at your theme to see. I know, episode number 49.
How did you know that? Your head's like the Encyclopedia Britannica.
I have this thing called Google, and I just type in WPwatercooler and then caching.
Oh, it's not up here?
Everything shows up.
Oh.
Wow, you just Googled your own brain.
Yep, I know, it's crazy.
Pretty impressive.
Outsourcing. Like a boss.
Like a boss.
What is happening?
Since we're talking about plugins, we're talking about Supercache. One of the plugins that I like is, and we've mentioned this before, is Query Monitor.
Mm-hmm.
It may be a little bit too technical for our audience, but what I like.
I was going to say, it. Don't just go installing that for fun and kicks.
And I'm not suggesting that, but it does at least tell you if you've got some slow processes within your system, within your software.
One of the most frustrating things is finding out that you have slow processes in your system that you have no idea what they're doing. And you're like, great, I have, and then you just have to go pay somebody.
Also, but at least the best way to actually get an idea where your time is being spent is if you can install I can't think of
That's a weird name for a plugin.
Plugin. Does that have dashes or hyphens?
All right, George just had a brain fart.
We broke George.
Yes, I did. It's the thing that I use for profiling in Vagrant right now. It's
just one thing, and it'll be in the
This is the great part of the show.
Anyway, what does it do? You can Google it.
George, wake up. What does it do?
I'm Googling. Blah, blah, blah.
No, don't Google. Live Googling. That's really exciting. Let's live Google
a site that says, let me Google that for you?
Yes.
Xdebug.
LMG.
What is it?
Yeah.
Xdebug. Xdebug to store the profiles on the server, look through, and it'll actually trace every single function call on a load and tell you exactly where the bulk of your time is being eaten up.
There are so many things
What
I
was
can
the
do
name of
with
it
that
again?
thing.
Xdebug.
Oh, okay.
Which, if you use varying vagrants for local development, that's already there. And Aaron Jorban has a blog post that details some great ways to use that on your local server.
Great.
And if you're just trying to make your cat's website work, then they could hire somebody like me or like Steve or like Suzette or or say and be like, hey, so use this Xdebug thing that I heard about on Water.
You can't hire me.
Figure out what's up with it.
I'm on lockdown.
You're on lockdown.
I'm unhireable. I mean,
Well, we've known that.
Okay. Shit.
All right, so we have plugins. So we have plugins. We have server optimization. What other small little tweaks that we could do?
Oh, front end
You also
stuff.
just want to really.
Go ahead, Suzette.
Front end stuff.
What was that?
Well, there's a lot you can do on your site. You can minify your CSS. You can optimize your images. There's a lot of little things on there and that you could do. Yeah, and those were some of them.
One of the basicest things, and this is like so basic that I'm sure anyone who does this knows this, but I do a lot of training, and this is one of the first things that I explain to my clients when they're uploading images. They need to use the pre-sized images in WordPress and don't scale down large images. Like, it seems so obvious to us, but when we're turning our sites over to the client, they don't necessarily know that. So unless you take the time to explain that to them, hey, there's a reason that there's scaled images in here. They're going to be loading like 3,000 by 3,000 pictures and then just resizing them, and that's a real thing that happens.
Absolutely. Comment. Absolutely agree with it. But beyond that, you should also implement a CDN. So that's another way to get some of the resources off your server is to get all those images and JavaScript files, all those external files that never change, onto a CDN.
One thing I like to install always so that people to save them from themselves, like exactly what Say was talking about, is Imsanity. I'm Sanity. I am Sanity. That is a plugin where you can specify the maximum size, and it will resize the big image to whatever you say. So we used to have that problem.
Did we lose Jason? Did we go off air?
I don't know. We're going to keep going.
Well,
George, what were you going to say?
Oh, just saying, yes, using Imagemagick to automatically resize images is a brilliant plugin.
Yeah, that's important to do. I think that we think about so much of this stuff on the developer end, and then you forget that the user is actually using the site, and they're the ones that are sometimes causing these problems. You can have anything streamed and streamlined all you want, but if there's these front end problems happening, doesn't do any good.
I got
like
99 front-end
design
problems.
too. I think if you think about when you're actually in design phase, about like whether you need background images for certain things, then there's just a whole way to design that's a lot more minified. You kind of have like a lot of load from your background images or your other images.
Okay, I just want to comment on this face Steve has frozen. It's amazing.
My face is frozen?
Yeah, it's frozen. At least for me. Anyway, one of the things you mentioned briefly also was your theme. Like, so for the user, like the basicest user again, they end up getting these themes that are just have a whole bunch of stuff in them, and then the theme itself is what slows down the whole site. And or you have a million plugins or plugins that are conflicting with each other. So, if you're going to go ahead and streamline everything, I think it's just really important that you do a lot of front-end training with your client and explain to them why these things are important.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I can't see anybody or if anyone's frozen, so I'm just going to...
Everybody looks fine to me.
Yeah, we're good.
Except for George's hair.
George
Anyway,
has some
so
epic hair
training,
going.
that's my point, is training. And then, that's it, training. Train yourselves. Train your people.
Train your people.
I don't really know what's going on anymore.
That's okay. We're used to it.
I do know what's going on. I know it. Like,
Put your mask back on, Faye. Put your mask back on. It's okay.
Okay, I'm gonna take a 30-minute nap to improve my grades. That's what this is.
Does it really? That's funny.
That's what it says. It says take a nap. What?
I don't think it's us that's freezing. I think it's you.
Yeah. So is there any other last minute? We have 2-3 more minutes left. Is there any other last minute takeaways that people should start doing some research on? They have their cat website, potentially Cat Fancy could link to them, and now people want to start checking out their site and their content. Like, what's one of the first
Slashdot of the pet industry?
It is, I guess. I don't know. I don't own the cat. I'm
Make
actually
sure
allergic.
if you have videos that they're on YouTube and not on your WordPress.
Definitely.
Yes.
That's a good tip.
Yeah.
I think the key takeaway is that you need to prepare. It doesn't matter if this is a basic site, just a blog, or if it's something that you're intending to have a lot of traffic. You should be prepared for that, and that's one of the beautiful things about WordPress is you can prepare for that. And so, as a responsible developer, it's a good idea just to put those planks in place so that if and when that does happen, the site doesn't break and it just continues on, and so that the sites can scale from the very beginning. I think that's what's important.
Act as if it's going to happen, because it could at any minute.
And if you don't, it will, and then you'll be trying to white screen.
Just like if you had a brick and mortar store, make sure you had enough parking spaces, because you could always end up having more growth. Well, make sure that you have enough parking spaces available, so if people start showing up, you actually have places for them to park. So
is it possible to find retail space with parking spaces in Huntington?
Yeah, I was like, I think maybe inventory would be a better analogy there. I'm going to critique that.
No, there's handicap spaces and everything.
All right, let's keep going on this analogy for the next 30
This is
seconds.
really good, guys. Come on.
I know, this is great content. Wow.
If you're in the store, and if all of a sudden the lights all went out in the store, that's what it would be like.
Jason, is it 11:30 yet?
it is 11:30 right now.
Will that help?
Close enough. Kill it. Kill
All
the
right,
thing.
love you guys.
All right.
I'm going to go take a nap now.
All right, so make sure you go to our website, WPwatercooler.com. Check us out there. If you just want to listen to us, we're available on SoundCloud, we're available on Stitcher, and we're also available on iTunes as a podcast.
And
Go
we're
to
going to
our
work
website,
San
click on the
Francisco
subscribe,
with Jason.
and
Work
we
San
will see
Francisco.
you then. All right, guys. You have a good
Don't
one.
bring if you have
Bye-bye.
Ebola. Don't come if you have Ebola.